Basically, my background is I've had experience in chemical dependency, which is alcohol. I can deal with in that area. Again, we're dividing the normal. I see people that deal with person on a physical basis alone, or they deal with them on a spiritual basis alone, or they deal with them on a psychological basis alone. I believe we've got to deal with the whole person, a holistic approach to dealing with the whole individual, the whole personality. That these give me the basis to deal with the person as a whole. The YMCA helps deal with the other part of them, that's the physical. I'm not much of a physical therapist or a physical PE teacher, but the YMCA has availability and access to gymnasiums and saunas and racquetball and such things that'll help meet that end of it.
What kind of
Been in a car wreck.
It's amazing we can't get our tape like this.
Sorry about this.
Not have a further report on that.
What kind of harm could these chemicals cause, I mean, if they're inhaled?
Well, certainly they're extremely toxic under fire conditions. We're not sure what they will do, but we know they shouldn't be inhaled, certainly fatal if swallowed, and I'm sure if the environment was contaminated enough that it could be fatal if inhaled. But
Debra Kay Miller, a resident aide at the Enid State School, screamed for help moments before another employee, 25-year-old Daryl Grant, fired at least 3 shots, killing the woman instantly. Apparently, Miller was reporting to work for the 3 o'clock shift when her former boyfriend followed her into the school's administration building.
The school told me that it would be 4 to 6 hours, and I talked to one lady and she said that it said 2 to 3 days. So, you know, you don't know where you're going to be.
Where will you stay if you can't go home tonight?
My mother-in-law's. Free dinner.
Well, I can understand their precautions and everything, you know, so I guess it's probably all right.
It is a very good possibility that it could be 1 or 2 days before they could go back into the evacuated area. And again, as a precautionary measure, the chemicals in the trailer are such that we just cannot back a truck up and remove them. They've got to be contained there and then safely removed, and that's what's, of course, I'm sure creating the problem for the fire department.
it's a precautionary measure that the people downwind should be evacuated. And I must emphasize at this point, it is a precautionary measure. There's no immediate danger. We're just not taking any chances.
Midwest City Fire Chief Tom Canfield emphasized that the evacuation of approximately 250 residents was simply a matter of caution. Canfield's department had put out a chemical fire in the early morning hours. The chemicals had been in a store and semi-trailer on East Reno. By early afternoon, United States Pollution Control Incorporated, a private corporation, had begun building a sand dike to prevent the seepage of chemicals. USPCI also began inventorying the chemicals at the site. One official said from what he had seen, there was nothing to scare him. By late afternoon, Chief Canfield announced the cause of the fire was arson. and leads were being checked out. The cleanup continues tomorrow, and officials hope to be finished by the end of the weekend. Bill Ross, Action 4 in Midwest City.
The only people that are in imminent danger right now are the people actually involved in the cleanup operation. And as you can see, they're using the protective gear that they're not in any danger either. But as long as there's the least chance that there could be a risk to the residents downwind within this 10-block area, we're not prepared to take that risk.
Debra Kay Miller, a resident aide at the Enid State School, screamed for help moments before another employee, 25-year-old Daryl Grant, fired at least 3 shots, killing the woman instantly. Apparently, Miller was reporting to work for the 3 o'clock shift when her former boyfriend followed her into the school's administration building, threatening to kill her. Enid police confirmed that a receptionist and another woman witnessed the shooting, but were unable to help. Most of the school staff had today off because of the holiday. Enid Police Captain Jerry Bowen describes what happened.
From information we received at the scene and from witnesses at the scene, we knew we were looking for one Daryl L. Grant, a Negro male, approximately 25 years old. They both are employees of the Enid State School. And at this time, we still don't know what brought about the argument or why the shooting. But Ms. Miller was shot several times at the scene and was pronounced dead at the scene. The body has been sent to the State Medical Examiner's office in Oklahoma City.
After a 4-hour manhunt, Grant turned himself in to Enid police. He is expected to be arraigned tomorrow on charges of first-degree murder. In Enid, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
The home video game craze continues to be as popular as ever, but now one game set for distribution is causing quite a controversy. The game is called Custer's Revenge. It is played by having a cartoon nude Custer chase and assault a nude Indian woman. Points are added up until Custer is killed by an arrow. Several civil rights groups went to City Council yesterday asking for a resolution condemning the game. The groups say it is sexist and racist. Response from many home video game store owners about Custer's Revenge has been negative.
As a retailer, I'm for the free enterprise system, but I feel that when a tape or any kind of game becomes offensive to the public, it's in my better interest as a retailer not to carry it, even though there's a few people out there that probably want it. The majority of the people are against it, and we've got to look at what's offensive to someone. I wouldn't want somebody carrying something that would be offensive to me.
Even if Custer's Revenge turns out to be a popular item, it looks like the game won't be easy to find in Oklahoma City. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
It's very unsettling, I think, and particularly When you go out on layoff, you have a concern maybe I won't get called back when they say I'm going to be called back, and there's always that uncertainty. And we've had that situation before where we have only been supposedly laying people off for a week or two and not having them not come back until maybe 4 weeks. But we don't anticipate that at this time. We feel that this is the only time we'll be down through the end of the year.
I think one of the things at issue now will be the important question of credibility. And I think that over time, the truth is what counts, and a man can start with absolute credibility and lose it all in a hurry, or he can start with some bruises. And I think that I will be able to work with a clarity of purpose, with a sense of resolve, and with a sense of challenge that will be very energizing. I certainly wouldn't characterize our regents as having solicited me. And I probably started talking seriously 2 weeks ago with one or two of the regents, and then a third one by telephone. I only came back to Oklahoma yesterday afternoon for the first time since we left. So we were just chatting by telephone. And I suppose that it was at that moment that I sensed in conversation with the regents that they also felt this made sense. And that has been within the last 4 or 5 days. And frankly, I felt that it was an answer to prayer.
By the time the first unit arrived on the scene, the country bingo parlor at Highway 74 in Waterloo was totally engulfed in flames. Firefighters could only hose down surrounding structures, hoping that the fire would not spread. Apparently, a workman came to light the pilot on the propane hot water heater for tonight's bingo game. Firefighters believe the water heater exploded, causing a small travel trailer behind the parlor to catch fire. Edmond firefighter Lieutenant Bob Billen explains what happened.
When the man lit the pilot light, it exploded. The building was an attached building. It exploded and caught that side of the place on fire. Being that it was wood construction, it went up very rapidly, so that's why it was so intensely involved when we arrived on the scene.
No damage estimate has been set, but nothing from the building was salvaged. One ironic twist, the country bingo parlor was operated by the Logan County Firefighters Association to raise money for charity. In Logan County, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
Statements of on the theory that there
It's been more than a year since 32 Midwest City sanitation workers were fired. The terminations came after the employees staged a sick-out in protest of the city's refusing sanitation workers to unionize. Now there are talks underway to rehire some of those who were fired. This in return for dropping all legal action against Midwest City. Mike Lawler, the attorney for the fired Midwest City sanitation workers, says there is one major stumbling block. The fired employees are asking the city to rehire all those who want their jobs back within 45 days of an agreement being reached.
Well, that's part of the problem, and the fact that we put in the letter to Mr. Johnston that we'd like to have all the employees back within 45 days. And he responded that that'd be unacceptable to the city because there's only 2 vacancies, and he couldn't go in and fire the ones that are there now. That may be the major stumbling block.
If the positions aren't there, we can't put them back to work. We can't, by the same token, create new positions because we don't have them budgeted for. So we've just got to wait and see how the attrition goes in that department or any other department in order to put them back to work.
So sanitation workers with Midwest City now are sure to keep their jobs despite what happens with the ex-sanitation crews. Other demands from the fired employees include coming back to work with vacation and sick time as though they were never fired. Midwest City says it will continue to negotiate, but insists there are some things unnegotiable. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Hundreds of preachers from around the country converged on Plattsmouth, Nebraska this week to stand up for what they believe in. The controversy surrounds the Faith Christian School in Louisville, Nebraska. The state ordered the church school to certify its teachers. When the school refused, law enforcement officials locked up the church and jailed its pastor. Vietnam veteran and Oklahoma City preacher Tim Lee is one of the protesters that made the pilgrimage north. And during a moving speech to his comrades, Lee reinforced the crowd's objective.
Roll over their graves tonight to know that a Baptist preacher is sitting in a jail cell tonight. You say, preacher, you get a little stirred up. Hey, boy, I'm not near stirred up as I can get.
By the order of a Nebraska district judge, the church has reopened. But tonight its pastor remains in jail. And Lee and other preachers from around the country view this incident as a test case. If the Faith Christian School remains closed, they fear similar rules may be imposed in their home states. Kurt Autry, Action 4.
The obsession of playing video games could be affecting America's young physically. According to at least one local PE instructor, today's youth don't have the physical strength they should. Ordinary exercises, chin-ups, sit-ups are arduous tasks for some kids. The reason for this lack of strength could be attributed to kids standing in front of a video game and instead of playing the more traditional games that serve as a physical conditioner as well as a form of entertainment.
Most of the children are weak in areas of strength, especially in their upper arms. They cannot lift their weight off the ground in a flexed arm hang in this position on a bar. Many, we do a physical fitness test, and many cannot even lift their weight off the ground at all, or maybe for just a few seconds. They don't get out and exercise like we used to. Most of the children are very familiar with the names of the video games, even at the first grade level. When they draw things, when they play games, they play Pac-Man, they play, blast off rocket ship like the asteroids and things like that.
There are many reasons for the interest in video games, according to the experts. But one of the main reasons kids play is for a feeling of accomplishment.
Some of these children, Kevin, come from impoverished backgrounds where they receive almost no recognition or no feeling of accomplishment, and the video games gives them that.
Basketballs, baseballs, and other traditional sporting gear still gets attention from the youngsters, but that attention is slowly shifting to the video arcades. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
But the program has potential of expanding to many dimensions and go on to bigger and better things as a program. But as we contacted them, the people, we'll train them for 2 hours and what we want, what to look for, what we want to know and what we don't want to know. And that's one of the big problems when people call us. They give us so many things that we could care less about at that point, but we need to know certain information right up front. And if they know what that is, then they can give it to us very quickly. We can get the information dispatched and try to stop some of the crimes. But, and one of the things that we'll be emphasizing is please observe and report, nothing else. Let us do everything else.
City service transmission system is about 9,000 miles of pipeline, and Northwest is about 6,000. So it gives a total of about 15,000 miles of transmission system, which is number 9 in the United States. I really believe our gas reserve position will be number 1 in the United States. We think
Dave McCurdy is running hard to make it back to Washington. For McCurdy, the road to Congress goes through towns like Stratford, Oklahoma. As he goes to the domino parlors and stores on Main Street, McCurdy discusses a wide variety of subjects.
How you doing? Great.
The area's Peach Festival, Nye versus Daxon, and State Question 558 concerning water supply. He asks local businessmen how things are going, and he talks about his accomplishments in the first term. McCurdy's the first freshman to ever chair a panel of the Armed Services Committee. The McCurdy Amendment requires reports as soon as military cost overruns become known. McCurdy says budget cuts are necessary, but he's not sure about Reaganomics.
You know, you have to make sure the numbers add up. It has to be reasonable and well thought out, as opposed to quick fix, magic solutions, and easy answers. I don't rubber stamp anyone. I don't rubber stamp the Democratic Party. I don't rubber stamp the president. And I represent these people, and that's the important thing. This is
Not everyone in Congress.
The reason McCurdy stresses his independence from the White House is obvious.
There's one candidate in your area who will help me keep the promises I made in 1980. That man is Howard Rutledge.
Chris Richards is a correctional officer at the Mabel Bassett Correction Center. Since May of this year, the quantity and quality of the people who want to work with Richards has increased dramatically. Each month for the last 6 months, an average of 600 people have applied for a corrections officer's job. Prior to May of this year, the monthly average was around 150. And the applicants who are hired are scoring as much as 30 points higher on state-administered tests. The main reason for the surge in applicants is unemployment. More people want jobs they might not have considered before. Corrections Department Director Larry Meacham says that because of overcrowding, an officer's job is tougher than it used to be.
We had no double selling in February of this year, and last week we reached 2,244 people double sold. Now, you can't add all those additional people without increasing the tensions and the stress within the environment.
And Meacham said if the number of applicants stays high, he would like to impose new minimum hiring requirements. Those requirements would extend to both test scores and physical ability to do the job. Bill Ross, Action 4.
As you might expect, it costs the most to get elected to the state's highest office. Campaign contribution and expense reports filed with the state election board show that Governor George Nye has spent more than $1 million to keep his job. His Republican challenger Tom Daxon shelled out close to $750,000 for his campaign. It's cheaper to become the state's second highest public official. Lieutenant Governor Spencer Bernard has spent $91,000 to try to keep his seat. His Republican opponent Norman Lamb had spent only about a third as much when he filed his last expense report 2 weeks ago. As of October 18th, Democrat Mike Turpin had forked over $182,000 in his bid to become Oklahoma Attorney General. Much of that money was spent to help defeat incumbent Attorney General Jan Eric Cartwright during the Democratic primary. Cartwright spent $50,000 in his unsuccessful attempt to keep his post. Turpin's Republican challenger, Earl Donaldson, has been running a low-budget campaign. When the Republican Party pulled the plug on his campaign fund, Donaldson stopped campaigning. His latest expense report shows he's only spent $3,000 on his try for the Attorney General's chair. The Oklahoma County DA's race is one of the most expensive local contests. State Election Board records show that incumbent District Attorney Bob Macy has spent 3 times his annual salary in order to keep his job. The $135,000 Macy has spent is about twice the $69,000 his Republican challenger Wayne Wells has expended. Now, the important thing to remember about the campaign expense figures is that they're incomplete. They don't reflect money spent on media blitzes the final campaign week. And anyone who's watched TV, listened to radio, or picked up a newspaper this week knows the candidates save some of their cash for one final push. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
Well, the only thing I just saw in there on the network, that the Senate, there's been no net change in the Senate. That's the important spot, I think, for the president. It lets the president, his veto can be sustained so that the big spenders like Tip O'Neill and Dave McCurdy won't be able to get in there. They'll get a veto sitting on top of them. So what we're looking at is stagnation and compromise for the next 2 years if this kind of trend holds up.
So when you come in and buy these products, we're able to sell them to you not for profit, but just for enough.
Letty Hunter is telling a food management class at Douglas High School how to make cookies. The class will sell them to raise money to meet their expenses. Meeting expenses is also on the mind of Letty Hunter herself as she nears retirement after 41 years of teaching. For the first time, the Treasury Department is having to borrow from funds for Social Security disability benefits and Medicare to cover the checks drawn on the Old Age Trust Fund. Letty has paid into Social Security for more than 30 years, and now she's worried it might not be there when she needs it.
And instead of retiring at the age that you think you're going to retire, when you get 65, that's the retirement age, or 70, you're going to have to work for the rest of your life. And you're going to have to try to find a job that you can stay on and continue to work until the good Lord say, come visit me.
Professor James Roach says there are several possible changes that could help the system, such as making it a low-income program, raising the retirement age, or removing the maximum amount of income on which the tax is paid. But Roach says Congress may not be ready to meet the issue head-on.
Politically dynamite. And it could make or break careers.
Both Roach and Letty Hunter would tell Letty's students the same thing. Start planning for retirement as if Social Security won't be around when you quit working. Bill Ross, Action 4 at Douglas High School.